So, we are in the second week of talking about our songs of exultation. As we were looking forward to the fall semester, we noticed that our lectionary, the readings that we use on Sunday, were just chock full of these songs of exultation. And a lot of that had to do with the year that we're in. And we thought, well, let's really kind of highlight these. And it really kind of lifts our eyes towards heaven and takes us out of all the earthly craziness that can surround this holiday season. And I know that you come in here maybe tired from finals, maybe tired from getting everything ready for Christmas, from doing all those last-minute errands and cooking. And so we wanted something that would just be kind of a breath of fresh air, something that would kind of take you to another place. So we are going to be talking. Last week we talked about Zechariah and about Simeon with the Nunc Dimittis, and this week we're going to highlight some of the women. We're going to go through the Song of Hannah and the Song of Mary, the Magnificat, and also I'm going to kind of start off with another song of exultation that does not show up in our lectionary. This was actually a song written by Thomas Aquinas, and it's called O Saving Victim. And this particular one is very meaningful to me, having been on the pilgrimage in 2016 with our youth. And pilgrims who are there, just raise your hand. So we got Charlie and Evelyn and Beckett here. We went to Aberdeen, which was a site of the consecration of the first Episcopal bishop. We ran into this problem with the consecration of bishops in America because they were being ordained in England, where you swear an oath to the Queen or the King. And that becomes problematic when you fight a war to separate yourself from that king. So Scotland was more than excited to have us come up there, where we did not have to swear an oath to the King of England, and to consecrate Samuel Seabury. So we got to go to Aberdeen, and not the actual building, because the actual building had been moved, but that site and that community that really kind of launched the Episcopal Church in America with the consecration of him. And it was during this evensong that it was the first time on the whole journey. We'd been doing a lot of moving around, a lot of exploring, a lot of activity, but it was the first time I really felt the entire group release. Just settle in and be taken to another place. The stillness came over all of us, and we just got to sit back and let it wash over us. And so every night we would go around the room and we would talk about our junk, our joy, and our Jesus of the day. And that night, I mean, I'm kind of the geeky music major who loves that kind of thing, but I was really amazed to see how many of our youth were taken by this particular piece of music as well, because it kept coming up over and over again as we talked about our joy. They said, wow, that piece of music really transfixed me and took me to another place. Here's a picture of all of us in Aberdeen, in Scotland. That was with one of the people that showed us around. And if you'll see, I wore my kilt today to celebrate this. This was actually my mother's kilt that she bought in Edinburgh when she was in college. And my grandmother, whose last name was Stewart, it was her Stewart pin that I put on here. So it's nice to have kind of from generation to generation. And I want you, if you want to, you can close your eyes. Try not to fall asleep. I know that's dangerous right now. But just kind of let this piece of music wash over you and hear it. And this is what I think of when I think of a song of exultation. I'm curious for the pilgrims. How did that hit you 2 years later?
Still pretty good.
This was, of course, in a beautiful, beautiful church in Aberdeen. But I like to think of Hannah or of Mary standing out in a field, wherever they were, outdoors and singing this kind of song of praise. And if anybody wants to look that up, it's Eric Essenwald, and he wrote an entire collection on the Northern Lights and how, for him, that was God's symphony to us. And there's a Magnificat, there's a Nunc Dimittis. That one was O Saving Victim, which was one by Thomas Aquinas. But just beautiful. So in our lectionary, to understand the Magnificat, we go back to the Sunday before Thanksgiving, where we had the Song of Hannah. And we all know the story of Mary, but sometimes Hannah, you're going, now who was she again? What was that story? So I'm going to invite Jonathan to read a little bit about Hannah and her story, because the Magnificat is really going to echo back to Hannah. So come on up.
On the day when Elkanah sacrificed, he would give portions to his wife, Peninnah, and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he gave a double portion, because he loved her, though the Lord had closed her womb. Her rival used to provoke her severely, to irritate her, because the Lord had closed her womb. So it went on year by year. As often as she went up to the house of the Lord, she used to provoke her. Therefore Hannah wept and would not eat. Her husband Elkanah said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? Why is your heart sad? Am I not more to you than 10 sons? After they had eaten and drunk at Shiloh, Hannah rose and presented herself before the Lord. Now Eli the priest was sitting on the seat beside the doorpost of the temple of the Lord. She was deeply distressed and prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly. She made this vow, O Lord of hosts, if only you will look on the misery of your servant and remember me, and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a male child, then I will set him before you as a Nazirite until the day of his death. He shall drink neither wine nor intoxicants, and no razor shall touch his head. As she continued praying before the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying silently, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she was drunk. So Eli said to her, How long will you make a drunken spectacle of yourself? Put away your wine. But Hannah answered, No, my lord, I am a woman deeply troubled. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have been pouring out my soul before the Lord. Do not regard your servant as a worthless woman, for I have been speaking out of my great anxiety and vexation all this time. Then Eli answered, Go in peace. The God of Israel grant the petition you have made of him. And she said, Let your servant find favor in your sight. Then the woman went to her quarters, ate and drank with her husband, and her countenance was sad no longer. They rose early in the morning and worshipped before the Lord. Then they went back to their house at Ramah. Elkanah knew his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. In due time, Hannah conceived and bore a son. She named him Samuel, for she said, I have asked him of the Lord.
And Jane is going to read to us a song of Hannah that follows as she is praising the Lord for hearing her prayers.
This is from 1 Samuel, the 2nd chapter. Hannah prayed and said, My heart exults in the Lord. My strength is exalted in my God. My mouth derides my enemies, because I rejoice in my victory. There is no holy one like the Lord, no one besides you. There is no rock like our God. Talk no more so very proudly. Let not arrogance come from your mouth. For the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty are broken, but the feeble gird on strength. Those who were full have hired themselves out for bread, but those who were hungry are fat with spoil. The barren has borne 7, but she who has many children is forlorn. The Lord kills and brings to life. He brings down to Sheol and raises up. The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low, he also exalts. He raises up the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash heap, to make them sit with princes and inherit a seat of honor. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and on them he has set the world. He will guard the feet of his faithful ones, but the wicked shall be cut off in darkness. For not by might does one prevail. The Lord, his adversaries shall be shattered. The Most High will thunder in heaven. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the power of his anointed.
Thank you. What in the story of Hannah or in her song, what jumps out at you? What grabs your heart? I know we've got one who preached on this. She poured out her soul. She was vulnerable. Yeah. She was willing to make a spectacle of herself, even. What else? Ah, that's good. She lived with such personal torment for so long. It talks about how Peninnah had really kind of, pushed her buttons, had really made fun of her for not being able to bear children for years and years and years. And that had to be just heartbreaking. She never lost faith in God. She knew that he would answer her prayers, maybe not how or when, but she never stopped praying. And that's hard. That's really hard. I've had friends who've gone through struggles of infertility, and to maintain your faith in God during that time is a struggle. It's definitely something where, a lot of people will say, if you just pray harder, you'll get pregnant. Well, that's really not helpful to hear when you're going through this kind of a struggle. Hannah prayed hard. She was praying hard all along. And yes, God chose to answer her prayer in this way, in this story. But there are lots of different ways that can go in a journey. And to keep that faith, that's not a small thing. Not a small thing, especially for Hannah's time. The priest assuming she was drunk, because why not, Crazy woman. Right. That he changes so wholeheartedly and so quickly once he listens to her explanation. So he does listen. There's power in that as well. He does listen and hears her. Very good. Hannah takes us to the story of Elizabeth as well. Elizabeth, mother of John the Baptist, also spent many years praying to the Lord, not able to bear a child, and eventually is told, we talked about this some last week, that they will have a son. His name will be John, and I'm going to show you a picture. So this was on our pilgrimage to Israel, and you can see in the ground there it's written Magnificat in the stone. And this was supposedly the site where Elizabeth and Mary had their encounter. Very thin place, if you've heard that. Just kind of you walk onto that area and you just feel something important happened, and we might not know exactly where they were, but in that area you can just feel the Spirit of it. And I personally believe that it was the encounter between Mary and Elizabeth that got Mary to a place where she could sing the Magnificat. Here was a young, unwed, teenage girl for whom having a child was scary, risky, threatening, and completely out of what she was thinking was going to be in her story at that time. She's thinking, I will be judged, I will be punished, I will be forsaken, my husband might leave. She's not knowing what's going to happen. And she goes and she visits with Elizabeth. Elizabeth, who has tried for many, 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 many years to have a son, to have a child, and knows the blessing of that life, knows the joy in being able to bear a child. And I think in that encounter somewhere is when Mary's heart was able to switch from fear to praise. And so I really feel like that this place was a transformational place for Mary. There's a statue in the courtyard, and you can see it's Mary and Elizabeth, and I just love that they are just looking right into each other's eyes and kind of that tender encounter between the two of them. So Mary, again, very young at the beginning of her adult life. And so I suggested that perhaps having me read it was not going to get that point across as well. So I've invited Beckett to come read the Magnificat for us.
This is from Luke chapter 1. And Mary said, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Savior, for he has looked with favor on the lowliness of his servant. Surely from now on all generations will call me blessed. For the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is his name. His mercy is for those who fear him from generation to generation. He has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the thoughts of their hearts. He has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy, according to the promise he made to our ancestors, to Abraham and to his descendants forever."
Having just heard the Song of Hannah and now the Song of Mary, what kind of resonates between those two? What do you hear echoes of? I hear in both of them great humility. You've looked with favor upon the lowliness of your servant. You've lifted up those. You've lifted up those who are poor, those who are meek. All three of these women would end up having sons dedicated to God's work. They would all go on to risk their own lives, to put themselves in great danger, spreading God's love in their time. These women were taking on not only bringing these children into the world, but then letting go of them. Anything else about Mary's song of praise? You'll get to hear a lot of it in our music today in the service, so listen to the hymns and the anthems and the sermon, of course, and really kind of listen for those echoes of Hannah and of Mary. So now you're going to get to have a little bit of time talking with those at your table. And these are just a couple of things to get the conversation going. Has there ever been a time, have you found yourself at a crossroads where you felt called to do something almost impossible that involved great risk, judgment, or sacrifice? And what did that feel like? What was that process like? Where did you find yourself in that? How did you work your way through it? Or are you still working your way through it? Have you ever been so overcome with thankfulness and relief to the point of wanting to sing out with joy? I think about Hannah, and I think about Mary, and I think about they're just bursting and wanting to say, this wonderful thing is happening. I want to shout it from the rooftops. Have you ever found yourself in that kind of a moment? So take some time and just kind of talk amongst your tables, and then we'll gather back. Okay, I know that I got to sit in on a couple of wonderful discussions, and I hope that you have been able to have some time to share some of your story with others. But does anybody have anything they'd like to share with the larger group? Anything that came out of your discussions? Any musings or observations?
We discussed a lot about mistakes and came to the realization that there's no mistakes, there's only decisions, which brought out decisions that don't involve God usually turn out wrong.
We were talking about the joy of discovery and of new life and having your family support you.
So we had a few requests after last week to go back to the Song of Simeon, and this is the Nunc Dimittis. All of these songs of praise and songs of exaltation, you will hear them hopefully in a new way as we do our even songs, and so the Nunc Dimittis is one of these. That we started last week, and I'm going to let Jonathan lead you in it again this week so that maybe we can begin to adopt this as one of our songs of praise at Holy Communion. I think play it again first, get it, because not everybody was here last week.
A senior high camp at my own Camp McDowell down in Alabama, where I grew up as a camper and have been a counselor and have led sessions. So this is the Nunc Dimittis is part of the service of Compline, which a lot of our own young people are pretty familiar with. And at McDowell, there's an oral tradition of the setting of this song. I don't actually know if it's written down or comes from a musical source other than camp. We've tried to find it and haven't had much luck. So we thought it would be fun to share here as well.
Now set your servant free to go in peace as you have promised. For these eyes of mine have seen the Savior, whom you have prepared for all the world to see. A light to enlighten the nations, and the glory of your people Israel. Glory to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is
for each one of us is that this Advent and this Christmas season will give us moments when we can release all of our earthly worries and all that is holding us back and lead us to those moments that will help us to sing forth our praises to God.